Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery, here in my home office, my home studio. Craig, good evening, buddy. How are you? Craig, thank you for stepping up to being one of the first people to sponsor the golf outing that we're going to talk more about tonight. Randy, good evening. How are you? Hello, Ross. Did you get your foursome put together, Ross, for the outing? I need Maker's Mark in there now. My throat's dry. Anyway, my friends, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live. Cliff's with us this evening. Scott is along with us. Dan is along with us. John Callison. John, I saw you, obviously, you know this, yesterday. Why am I not seeing? Let me change a couple things on my end here. I tried to do a different screen resolution because I forgot my cheaters tonight, okay? So I was trying to be able to see this better. And I think, there we go. Now I'm seeing them. John, it was nice to see you yesterday at Jay's. I appreciate your help. Michelle, good evening. How are you? John says the same thing. It's nice to see you yesterday as well. John, of course, was with he was the president of the CMU Bass Fishing Club, graduated, and now he's doing a little stint at Jay's Sporting Goods as well as some other things as well. So, yeah, John, it was very nice to see you. My name is Mike Avery. This is called Wednesday Night Live. It is a beautiful Wednesday night as I look out the window of my office here. Nice, cool, northeast wind, which is coming off the bay, which is going to make it a little cooler here. But it feels good. Ross says he still needs one more golfer to fill out Ross Elliott's foursome for the first annual Mike Avery Outdoors golf outing. Jim, good evening. How are you? Nice to have you along with us. Mike checking in from Marlette. How are things in Marlette this evening? Uncle Johnny, how are you, buddy? Uncle Johnny is part of my foursome for the golf outing. Okay, so some things before our guest tonight. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, joins me. I know she's one of your favorite guests. She's one of my favorite guests. Always very interesting, very insightful, very well-spoken, and I appreciate that. So a couple of things to go through before I bring in Amy, and then I'll wrap things up after Amy and I are done. Can you believe it's almost June? I was recording the radio show today, and by the time folks hear that show, it's going to be June, which is absolutely crazy. You still have just a couple of days to apply for your Michigan bear or elk tag. Don't forget. You don't want it to get to be June and say, oh man, I forgot to do it. Don't forget. You still have time to shoot a Michigan turkey, but that season is wrapping up as well. Mike, good evening. How are you? Patrick's over at the softball fields. We were supposed to be at the softball fields tonight. This is one of the few nights that Amy Trotter isn't at a softball field. Josh, good evening. How are you? Mike Sills, Michigan Outdoorsman. Jeff, good evening. Oh, Aunt Debbie and Uncle Johnny donated to the charity golf outing. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Scott, good evening. How are you? Fawns. Have you seen any fawns yet? I just posted a video on my Facebook page of a doe giving birth to a fawn. It's not something you see every day, but I thought it was kind of a cool video, and I posted it. Ross says, my dealership is sponsoring hole number 8. If a person gets a hole in one, we're going to give away a 2024 GMC Terrain. I've never gotten a hole in one before, Ross. I've been close. This would be a good place to do it. Mike Sills say, hey, so you got into some walleye. Boat running's good. The boat is running great. And yeah, we did get into some walleye. And if the wind ever quits blowing, I'll get into them again. John, I have a doe and a fawn on trail camera. Bruce, good evening. How are you? Nice to have you along with us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Okay. Who was that? Linda says just in time. Linda, one of your favorite guests tonight, Amy Trotter of MUCC. I know that you love to hear what she has to say. Terry checking in from Shingleton. How are you? Used to be the home of Iverson Snowshoes. I don't think anymore. Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, checking in from Andy's. The place I'm afraid to go because I know if I walk in, I'll never walk out. Things are great in my neck of the wood, Dave. And how are you, Dave Austin? Appreciate you being along with us. Okay. Set the stage here. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC. MUCC stands for Michigan United Conservation Clubs. One of, if not the country's largest group of sportsmen and women's groups in the country. Amy is their executive director. I have partnered with MUCC for several years now. I believe in what they're doing. I think they are providing a very, very valuable tool in helping outdoors men and women like us stay informed with what's going on in Lansing and beyond. It's impossible to know what people in Lansing are doing. All the politicians, the DNR, the NRC, I can't keep track of it. And my job is in part to keep track of it. I rely on MUCC a lot for that type of thing. Let me just say hi to some more folks tonight. How's the pond doing? The pond's doing pretty good, Mike. The geese are behaving themselves. Good evening, Tim. Good evening, Brian. David, nice to have you along with us. Greg checking in from Olivet. Another joint replacement, this time a knee. You're going to feel so much better when they're... Mike from Offshore Account. How you doing, buddy? I picked up some more of those flicker shads, flicker minnows. Had to teach the meaning of skinny water. Johnny. Video of the skunk chewing on live phone. I did. Amy will be at the outing. She's already said she will. Okay. If you have any questions for Amy Trotter, this is your chance to bring them in. Now, as Amy and I are talking, if I don't see your question and Amy doesn't see it and we don't respond, please post it again. I've never seen Amy duck a question. So if we see it, we will respond to it. So let me bring her in right now. Amy Trotter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you tonight?
All right. Very good. Very good. Yes, the sun is shining here too. So it's a great evening.
And one of the few nights you don't find yourself at a softball game or a softball field.
That is true. We have 2 in softball this season. So it's going to be a busy June and July.
Well, there are a lot worse things your family could be doing, though, right?
Exactly. We just got to make time for fishing too.
There you go. Absolutely. Johnny Bowler says, hi, Amy. You know Johnny. Or Amy, have you met Johnny the Bear Whisperer?
I don't think I've met in person. So I think really just through the show here.
All right. Well, he's a great guy. Kevin says right away, what is the status of the legal battle over Proposal G? I didn't... Help me out, Amy. Is there something going on?
Well, the coyote season is the thing. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, as many of your listeners probably know, we did file an appeal to the recent Natural Resources Commission decision that was back in March, which shortened the coyote season here in Michigan, which used to be a year-round season for the last 7 or so years. We filed that appeal, as did the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. So we are still in that paper exchange kind of, filing briefs and that point right now. There was a motion filed by the attorneys general to move the trappers case from Mackinac County down here to Ingham County, where MUCC filed. And while we objected to that because we do believe there's merits to both cases separately, it looks like the judge did rule to move those down here to Ingham County. So we will, and we just got that news today, actually. So you're hearing it here first, that, we will be fighting on common ground here in Ingham County.
Excellent. Edgar, to answer your question, what's the total number of fishing poles allowed for downriggers? It's 3 per angler. Ross says, Amy, will you join my team for the golf outing?
I don't really golf, so I'm going to really probably just participate by shaking hands and doing what I do and talking to folks. So I suspect we're going to come up with some kind of cool raffle or something that might maybe try to beat an Amy shot or something like that. So
will there be, I guess I'm making an assumption. I was thinking there would be MUCC folks there. You, probably Justin, probably Steve. I don't know if you guys will be playing or not, but you'll be there, right?
Absolutely. The whole day.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Bobby Sullivan, by the way. Hello, Bobby. How are you? Bobby Sullivan of Icebreaker Charters. It was Bobby's client 3 years ago now, I think it was, who caught that new state record king salmon. Bobby is playing in the golf outing Monday, July 29th at the West Branch Country Club. Craig says, Plowman, but good friend Craig, any rumors about the Deer Initiative? Amy, I know from talking to the folks from the UP group that they were wrapping up and getting ready to present to DNR and NRC. What else can you tell us?
Yeah, well, I served on the Lower Peninsula initiative as well. So we had a 2-day meeting just before the UP group met. We have a report as well. I think our report is probably not unexpected. It is really just a reporting of what happened in those meetings and how we made decisions. This wasn't really intended to be a voting kind of exercise where there was a majority and a minority and things like that. We tried to, as a group, develop objectives for the deer herd. And those objectives for Lower Peninsula are very, very different than the Upper Peninsula. So that made sense that both groups were separate and have separate reports, because we were really evaluating different changes based on different objectives for the deer herd. So from the Lower Peninsula team that I served on, I can say there was a lot of focus about expanding opportunity, about trying to balance the herd. There was a lot of concern about disease and the health of the herd. And ultimately, some of the tactics, the regulations that were offered up aren't something that maybe MUCC has policy to support or oppose. Maybe we're neutral on some of those things, but there was a majority of people that felt some of those things did meet the objectives that we were trying to achieve for the deer herd. So that whole report is getting delivered. It has been delivered now to the NRC, and they'll be talking about it here at their meeting in June coming up. So it is, it is really just one piece of information that's going to the Natural Resources Commission. So once those things are up and out, we will be sharing them with our members, and we want people to engage directly with the Natural Resources Commission about what you like, what you didn't like, and provide and continue to provide that public comment.
I think you just answered my question. We as citizens and deer hunters will be able to see those reports eventually?
Yeah, I believe so.
Perfect. Kevin Roth, who has a dog in this whole hunt, no pun intended, about the coyote season. Amy, what would it take to change how the DNR commissioners are chosen? Right now they're appointed. What would be your thoughts on having them voted or some other method? Is the NRC still a good group, and is appointment by the governor the best way to go?
Well, I mean, it's been a method here in the state of Michigan that's lasted for 100 years now, more than 100 years. We've had a commission style of governance. It was actually a suggestion by Aldo Leopold to really help to insulate natural resources decision making from the politics of the day, because it's not just, it is a governor appointment, but it is required to be bipartisan by law. It would take a change in law, and honestly, I think there'd probably be some legal debate of whether then the NRC could, or the governor could even just abolish the NRC, because it is a board and commission that she has control over in terms of being a part of the executive branch. So we've talked before, again, because the NRC used to appoint the DNR director back in the day, and that was actually changed by an executive order through Governor Granholm way back in, I think, 2009. That changed. We fought it. We tried to fight it. We were not successful in overturning that in the legislature. And so now today that continues to stand. I think we need to get back to that, but it is still somewhat difficult to do, given that, this is an executive branch board and commission, and the governor does have authority on that.
Rob Sador from White River, Ontario. Do we need a team from up north for golf? Rob, absolutely. I mean, we've still got openings, and anybody who wants to be involved, go to mucc.org/golf. Linda with a good question. Expanding opportunities. Amy, can you elaborate?
Well, for the lower Michigan, this is pertaining to deer hunting. There's a lot of still feedback, I would say, on whether the changes to muzzleloader season are the right changes, whether or not we should be kind of going back to traditional muzzleloader season. But with that, there was also a lot of conversation around expanding antlerless hunting opportunities. So whether that is in the late season, whether that's in public lands versus just private lands where some of the early and the late seasons happen, whether it's expanding that January urban season, urban archery season to other counties. So there was a lot of discussion about that. There was also a lot of discussion about what some would view as restricting opportunity with antler point restrictions. There was a lot of discussion about baiting, for example. So I can't say that, again, there's a lot of firm recommendations out there that the commission is going to chew on, but there's a lot of ideas and they've been kind of rated and ranked among the team members, and that information is all going to be provided to the NRC.
Well, believe me, there are a lot of people are looking forward to seeing when that's released. Um, Mike asked a question, Amy, and I'll preface this that a lot of people think that you guys, MUCC, has the authority to do things that you don't. Amy, I know you and MUCC cannot institute a sandhill crane season, but you are in Lansing, you are in the know, you do talk to people, you do have insight. What's holding that up?
Well, it is a decision actually that is in the hands of the Natural Resources Commission. So if they called upon the DNR to go through sort of the process of requesting the federal government grant us game, basically game season for sandhill cranes, that would happen. We have the tools to do it because the Natural Resources Commission does have exclusive authority over the manner and method of take, and they are one entity that can name species that are not currently game species. So sandhill cranes would fall in that category where the commission has the authority to do so. We understand that the commission keeps, biting off these big things like the deer management initiative, and then they've taken on coyote hunting, and they keep kind of putting it on the back burner as, it's not the right time to do that. So I think it would take a collective of folks really talking one-on-one with the natural resources commissioners and, saying that there's a groundswell of support here for that. We know that MUCC does support it, to be clear. We've had those conversations, but again, we're still trying to work through a lot of these other big things, and they keep just saying there's just not enough air in the chamber here to get those things through.
Yep, I've heard that same thing, and I get that. Scott says, is Anthony Zettel or Jeff Janis showing interest in the golf outing? I haven't reached out to either one of those guys, Scott. I tell you, the guy I'd love to see there is Frank Ragnow. I can't get in touch with Frank, so if anybody has a connection for Frank Ragnow, how I can get in touch with him, let me know. Craig, any ideas on how to get landowners to allow hunting to open up hunting opportunities? There are programs, aren't there, Amy, that require people, if you're getting some kind of state aid for your land or farm, you have to open it up to hunting, or am I thinking of something else?
Well, there's two different programs currently in play here in the state of Michigan. So, and we did talk about these during the Deer Management Initiative. One of those that's most common in southern Michigan is the Hunter Access Program. That's where a landowner has to voluntarily enroll, and then their land is open to hunting, and it's posted, there's sign-in sheets, and you can find all of those on the DNR's website, what parcels of land here in Michigan there are. The problem is it's significantly underfunded because those landowners are compensated for opening up that land, and there's just not enough money to go around. So there has to be a way of sort of prioritizing where we want those lands opened the most, and then sort of adjusting those funds accordingly. They've really tried to hit it hard in the TB zone, for example, because they want more people shooting deer in those areas, and so they've incentivized those areas. But there just needs to be more money in the funds and in the fund, and then we would be able to at least offer that incentive for landowners to open it up. The other incentive is really enrolling in the Commercial Forest Act, program, which is a lot bigger for landowners to kind of bite off. It does require a forest management plan and some amount of timber, certain number of acres, all of those things. And then it is statutorily required to be open to public hunting and fishing, walk-in access only.
Amy, is there any question I could answer you that you don't know ask you that you don't know the answer to?
There was one that got me stuck a few years ago. So yes, it's possible, but
No, your wealth of knowledge is very impressive. Let's talk about a couple of things. The Sportsmen Against Hunger program, to me, seems like such a great program, a win-win all the way around. But there have been some problems with it in the past, plagued by basically what, a lack of funding.
well, it is a lack of funding, but it's also, some sort of, I guess, communications and issues that we've had most recently. So the DNR just very recently, right before deer hunting season last year, required all deer to be donated through the Sportsmen Against Hunger to be tested for both disease and metal particles, so lead, for example. That really kind of bottlenecked the works, but again, with a good outcome. I mean, it is important that the venison that is donated to needy families is healthy and, fragment free. So we want to make sure of those things, but it kind of rolled out a little clunkily. And right now, all of that testing costs a lot of money. And right now, game and fish funds, hunter dollars, are paying for that. We believe that it is really a general fund obligation that the citizens of Michigan should help in paying to secure this food source for needy families. And so there's a proposal right now from the Senate to fund it to the tune of almost $1.3 million in the first year to help bring in refrigerated trucks that would allow us to take advantage of the crop, the crop damage permits, so that venison source would be feeding into the program. It would pay for the testing that I just mentioned. It would pay for all the transportation and kind of, paying the processor to process it, giving them a little bit more per pound than they're getting right now, to make it worth their while to participate, because we've lost processors in the program too. So it really has been bottlenecked, and this funding would be critical to kind of break through some of those bottlenecks and also ensure that we're delivering a good, healthy protein to families in need, and also ensuring that we're managing the deer population where they need to be managed as well.
John says, I think MUCC is wonderful. I bet you like hearing comments like that, Amy. Thank you for all you do. I do think giving more hunters choices. He wants to see the bait ban go away. Here's what I find interesting. He says, we also need a sportsman or woman as governor. I think it's been a while to my recollection since we've had a hardcore hunter or angler as governor, but we do have several hunters and anglers in the legislature, don't we?
We do, but they're a smaller group than they used to be,
Hmm.
even today. So we need to really develop those champions, and I think that's another critical function that MUCC plays, but also the Michigan Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus. So we have a bipartisan, bicameral caucus of people who, whether they hunt or fish, they want to be supportive of things that are sportsmen and women's priorities. So it's really up to all of us to engage with your local legislator and offer to take them out, offer to help educate them. So yes, it is important that we elect our own and that, those elections do have consequences, but the reverse is also true. We can welcome them into the outdoors, and we should be doing that because it's a great educational opportunity.
I know 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to take one of our legislators out on Saginaw Bay walleye fishing, and it was a wonderful opportunity because for 4 hours I had his ear, and he was, we had a good conversation. There was nothing else to do, right? We were out there fishing, and he enjoyed it tremendously. Unfortunately, he's not in office anymore, but I thought experiences like that will open up these people's minds to just what it is that we're doing, and hopefully then when hunting and fishing related issues come around, they've got a better frame of reference to vote on them.
Absolutely. It is really critical. And we've found support, whether people hunt or fish or not, we've found support out there. So, for example, Representative Ayash is the lead sponsor for our mentored hunt program that we're rolling out right now. So there's legislation in the House that was introduced and had a hearing just last week. This would expand opportunity for hunters that cannot pass a hunter safety test because of cognitive impairment or, developmental disabilities. So we want to make sure that the outdoors are welcoming for all. And that message spoke to him. Now he's not a hunter; he's from Hamtramck, but he understands the importance and the value of hunting to the state of Michigan. But he cares even more about making sure that everybody has those kinds of opportunities, even if they have to be mentored their entire life. And that's what that bill does. So we're really excited to support that legislation, and it takes everybody and in the legislature and finding what is their niche and what is their interest, and we try to engage them through MUCC.
I'm glad, Amy, you brought up that special needs mentored youth program because Steve Wyndham, I interviewed him today, Steve from MUCC, today for the radio show this weekend. And that was one of the topics of discussion. I wanted to follow up on that. Mickey says, Amy, what's your opinion on clear cutting going on, especially in Ogama County? My follow up on that is, does MUCC get involved in issues that finite down to specific cuttings in certain counties, or do you just try to look at big picture?
Well, we do, just from a staff capacity aspect, we have to look more at the big picture at the statewide issues. So I don't know the specifics of that county, but I can say generally in our forest management plans throughout the state, clear cutting is actually a really good tactic for wildlife. We need more early successional forests for most of our game species, not all. And it really, we do have to have a mix of, age classes of trees. But clear cutting is a really great tool, and so is prescribed burning for that matter. It is a really great tool for forest regeneration. I understand what you're saying about the oaks, and sometimes maybe they do, take those down too. A lot of management plans will have just the major oaks stay, and everything else gets managed around it. But sometimes, and we have to, and this is where again I don't know the site specific details, but oak wilt is a real thing, and we also need to address those disease issues. So it's entirely possible that clear cutting is done because those forests are damaged and they really kind of need to start over afresh, and that's what a clear cut or a prescribed burn can do.
Amy, Josh Rivard, a hardcore Saginaw Bay walleye angler, any movement on the new commercial fishing bill? So we used to have two bills. There was a good bill and a bad bill. Is the bad bill gone now?
The bad bill is still out there. So, we have a 2-year legislative session. And so until we get to, the end of this year, this calendar year, all of those bills are still sort of fair game out there. So the good bill, though, is Representative Amos O'Neill's bill. We are very supportive of that legislation. We have not yet had a hearing. I can say there's a little inside baseball going on, and we've had some conversations. Our representative lobbyist, Bill Jackson, here in downtown Lansing, has had some meetings with if you will, the bad bill sponsor, Representative Jason Morgan, whose interest is commercial fishing because that's where his family comes from. And we said, if we could set aside the issue of game fish in nets, commercializing our game fish like lake trout, walleye, and perch, we could talk about all the other regulations. We could talk about what is the appropriate time frame for net tending, how many licenses, and what are the costs, and all of those things. All of those things are really negotiable, I think, and again, it's a package deal. So if you give on one, you get a little stronger on the other and things like that. And that makes sense to me. But it's the issue of game fish in nets that we really have a strong position in. And there's really just not a path forward there that either side desires. And so we're still at that, difficult spot. I mean, I think it's probably best if the bad bill just dies again, but it's going to keep coming back. And so we have said, if we could set aside that issue, we could talk about all the other things and really do a good job of modernizing and sort of right sizing our commercial industry here in the state, making sure they can be profitable too, but they're not harming the resource long term.
So it's game fish in commercial nets. That's your line in the sand in this issue.
It really is for MUCC.
Okay, let's see. Hey, Barry, how are you this evening? Earn a buck. Did you guys talk about that in your DMI, Amy?
We talked actually more about earn a second buck, which is a little bit different of a swing on it. So the conversation and kind of where and again, it's not all because it wasn't consensus, but one of the ideas that was heavily promoted is earn a second buck. So your combo tag for the lower peninsula would be $1, one doe. And then if you shot that doe, then you could earn that second buck tag. And again, there's a lot of logistics to it. The DNR firmly believes we actually have to go to the legislature to authorize that kind of system because, and we learned a little bit from Wisconsin, they had earn a second buck, and it was unpopular with enough people that the legislature actually outlawed the DNR from implementing it ever again. And so they would rather have the permission of the legislature to go and do a system like that, or at least, the ability clearly spelled out in legislation rather than, kind of going on shaky authorization grounds, implementing something and then getting told it wasn't even allowed. So
The information, the suggestions, the reports out of the DMI, Deer Management Initiative process, are those going to be worked on or addressed or instituted for the 24 season? Or if there are changes, are we looking out to 25?
there are certain things that the NRC can do for this year, and they are very interested in some of those short-term options. There's also the longer-term things that might need to go to the legislature. Those are what we considered long-term because the legislature's in an election year right now, and they're not really having a lot of session days between now and lame duck. So it's not probably feasible to do anything that requires the legislators for this deer season, but the NRC can move on some of those things immediately. There's also a lot of non-regulatory things that we talked about, like the appropriations for, hunter access programs or really just education initiatives that we can do more of right now with the funds that we have. So, those are part of the recommendations as well, those non-regulatory items, and the DNR is going to look at implementing and kind of strengthening some of those things as well.
Amy, changing gears, your youth camp is either opening now or will be soon, right, for the season?
It will be soon. Yes, we are moving quickly towards camp session. So it officially opens up, I believe it'd be June 17th for day camp for our first week of day camp. And then this season, we're actually going to have 5 weeks of overnight camp and 2.5 weeks of day camp. We are so excited. My daughter is one of those kids, so she's actually a third-year veteran of our MUCC camp. She's a little evangelist. She brings the brochures to her friends at school and stuff, so she's recruiting kids to come. It's awesome because every kid has the option to get hunter safety certified, and their parents don't have to worry about it. They get to shoot, they get to, fish, they get to kayak, they get to learn a little bit more too about the conservation science behind why we do the things we do. And they learn and have a lot of fun with, kids their own age. And these kids come from all walks of life. So some of them have actually never seen the stars because they live in an urban area where they just, there's too much light pollution. Other kids, like my daughter, have been a veteran of the program and already shot a couple deer. So we have every kid, every type of kid there. It's a really good opportunity. And that's why we really appreciate you hosting a golf outing to help support that youth camp.
Well, it's the first year we've done this. You never know on a first year event how it's going to turn out, how successful, the type of money that's going to be raised. I don't know. I don't have any idea. If we do make some money on this, though, how are you guys going to use this money? Where do you need help at the youth camp financially?
Well, the facility is always in need. So the buildings we use, it's the Waterloo Rec area and it's the Cedar Lake Outdoor Center within that. It was built by the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. So we're talking the 40s, 1940s. So these buildings are very old. Some of them are original. We need roofs. We need, steps. We need paint. We need toilets. I mean, it's kind of boring, but those are the kinds of things that you have to, the base infrastructure for a youth camp. Once we get some of those basic needs taken care of, then we can talk about really cool enhancements. And one of the things that we've been working on and fundraising for a long time is our new Riley Archery Center. So we're very excited that we think we have all the funding we need for that, but now we got to get a builder in there to build it. And then we'll need a lot more things like targets and new bows and all of those usable supplies every year. But we do need a permanent home for our archery. Right now we've got it's safe, but it's a curtain and some string and sticks, basically kind of just outlining a place for archery to occur, and we want a permanent home for that.
Amy, if what have you ever put a number on what it would cost to do everything you want to do at that facility? I mean, we're not going to raise this in one golf outing. I don't know if we could raise it in 10 golf outings, but what type of number are you looking at to do what you want to do?
Well, really on an annual basis, and it differs year to year, obviously, but on an annual basis, I want to say we can spend at least $12,000 to $16,000 in just facility maintenance and camp supplies and those kinds of things. Because our registration, I mean, it is pay to come to camp. That covers a lot of the staff costs. That covers a lot of the basics. But this maintenance, and right now we just had to replace 40 new mattresses for the bunk beds, and those things are regularly a reoccurring problem. And old pipes, old roads, all of those things need to get repaired, need to get replaced. We've had one new water heater put in. We have another one that's failing now. So there's always a need. But yeah, it's about $12,000 to $16,000 just in facilities and regular maintenance costs that we're trying to raise.
Just to stay even, you need 12 to 16 grand a year, and that's not moving ahead.
Exactly. With more money, I think we would also expand the capacity, because right now we're limited with the number of staff we can afford and hire each year to really stay within the regulations for the state of Michigan for camp ratios. But if we were able to recruit more staff, we could have more spots open up. We could offer scholarships. There's a lot of opportunity there too, with more capacity and, again, some of those basic needs met.
Amy, once again, my buddy Ross is asking, where is this camp again?
It's near Chelsea, Michigan, so kind of Ann Arbor. It's in the Waterloo Rec area, and it's really just 4 miles out of town, but it's in a beautiful white pine forest.
Gotcha. All right, Amy. So I'm going to let you go here, but just a reminder for folks who want to get involved, it's mucc.org to join the organization or to learn more about MUCC in general. If you want to be a part of the golf outing, if you want to play and or sponsor the event, and there are some very, very reasonable sponsorship rates out there, some very low tiers, go to mucc.org/golf. And I would think, Amy, we don't care if somebody can play golf well or not, right? If you want to come out, have a good time, smoke a cigar, drink a beer if you want, have lunch with us and raise some money, that's the whole purpose, right?
Absolutely. It is for charity, not for, necessarily the trophies. So we really appreciate everybody who has shown an interest so far, and we definitely have room for more. So we hope to be able to see you there in July.
All right, Amy, I will definitely see you there Monday, July 29th at the West Branch Country Club. And I would hope that we would run into each other before then, but if not, we'll see you in West Branch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Amy. Thank you. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC. Craig says he extended his membership, but he did not take the Avery discount. And I appreciate that. It only costs you $35 a year to join MUCC. We used to have an Avery promo code that would save you some money. And I felt so bad about that. I haven't been promoting it anymore. $35 a year. Again, mucc.org/golf if you want to be involved, if you want to play, if you want to sponsor. So far, and I haven't seen the latest list, we do still have room for golfers. So far, sponsors that I know of, Security Credit Union has come on board, Yider Securities, or Yider Insurance, Linwood Taxidermy. Craig Plowman, who's on here right now, just signed up. He and Michelle as an individual sponsor of the event. But I've heard from several other groups and companies and organizations who are telling me that they're going to jump on board, and so I do certainly appreciate that. Let me tell you who's on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. My first guest is John Littlefield, Captain John Littlefield. He is the guy who taught my captain's class, helped me get my charter captain's license. Then he told me something interesting today, though, too. There are different types of captain's licenses. Mine is technically a master's license. You'll hear a lot about the 6-pack license, which allows you to take 6 people. Mine is a master's license. I have no limit on the number of people. And I actually, I only have a 25-ton rating. I don't have the 100-ton. But anyway, that was a little side note. Then Ed Roy of the Michigan Wildlife Council. In my second hour, Connor Backus talks about smallmouth fishing in the Keweenaw. Then Steve Wyndham of MUCC. This week's Ask Avery question, I'll come back to it in a minute, and we wrap it all up with Gary Morgan, hunting guide, talking about the upcoming bear season, and wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. This week's Ask Avery question is a question I actually asked of Mark Romanak of Precision Trolling and Fishing 411. This came about because I'm respooling all of my reels, my trolling rods, and I had a bunch of 10-pound tests, 10-pound XT I was going to respool with. My son James got me a great big spool of the 15-pound test. And he says, the fishing you do with people who aren't always aware of how to do it or the nuances. He said, they're hard on your gear. They tend to break things off. Maybe you should go with a 15. So I thought, I don't want to screw up my dive curves. Josh, he does. He does offer a captain's class in Bay City. In fact, that's where I took mine. Abdul Framashula Shliki. Bye. So my question for him was, Mark, I know your dive curves are based on 10-pound test. What if I use 15-pound test? What is that going to do to the dive curve? He says basically nothing. He says that increasing 2 line sizes, so it would be 10-pound, 12-pound, 15-pound, going up 2 sizes, will decrease my maximum depth of the bait by 4 feet. But at the shorter leads that I run for the skinny water, it's not going to make a difference. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to use more of the 15-pound test. So I've got half 10 and half 15, but I think we'll be okay. Okay. Craig says 16-pound Sunline is 0.013 diameter, which matches the curve. Craig, based on what Mark was telling me, I'm not really going to worry about it. Like yesterday, we were catching fish with a 25-foot lead length. 25 feet out isn't going to make a difference, right? And I'm never worried about the maximum dive curve. I'm just worried about getting down to a depth in usually something less than 14 feet of water. But that's a good point that you make right there. Thank you for that. All right, my friends. Again, thank you to Amy Trotter, Executive Director. Oh, I forgot to stop that. My name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. I have fished in 2 feet of water and caught fish in 2 feet of water. MUCC.org/golf to sign up, be a part of the golf outing. It was fast evening, wasn't it? It always is when we have Linda on. MUCC.org/golf. Have a good night, my friends.